Hello everyone. The number one question I get about fasting is which drinks are okay to have during intermittent fasting, which ones are acceptable for you to drink, and which ones will sabotage your progress. Well, in this video, I'm going to cover all the common drinks people ask me about and give you my recommendations. I'll let you know which ones you want to stay away from and which ones you can enjoy liberally. We're going to cover water, herbal teas, coffee, bone broth, green juice, coconut water, alcohol, and even diet soda. So stay tuned because you're going to want to know all this information. I'm a former Olympic decathlete, and if you want to truly master health by understanding how the body really works, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss anything. Let's start with the most obvious and important drink for fasting: water. Your body is primarily made up of water, right? It's the essential fluid medium that keeps everything running smoothly. And since it's completely neutral, meaning it doesn't impact your blood sugar or insulin levels, water is a perfect choice no matter what your health goals are. Weight loss, keto, you name it. Now here's the key. You want to make sure the water you're drinking is clean and pure. Tap water often contains chlorine and fluoride, which can be detrimental to your health, and you certainly don't want artificial additives in your water either. So, what do I recommend? Invest in a good quality home filter to purify your water. Or if you prefer bottled water, choose a reputable brand. Keep in mind that many popular bottled waters use reverse osmosis, which is okay for short-term use but can deplete your body of minerals in the long run. If you do opt for reverse osmosis water, I suggest adding a pinch of high-quality sea salt to replenish those minerals. Okay, moving on to another great option: herbal tea. Herbal teas are generally a fantastic choice for fasting. They're hydrating and can provide a sense of comfort and warmth, especially during those longer fasts. The key here is to choose high-quality herbal teas that are free of artificial ingredients, flavors, and sweeteners. The vast majority of herbal teas on the market fit the bill, but it's always a good idea to double-check the label. Look for teas made with natural herbs and spices, and steer clear of anything that contains hidden sugars or artificial ingredients. Remember, we want to keep our fasting as clean and pure as possible. So, whether you enjoy a soothing chamomile tea before bed, or a refreshing peppermint tea in the afternoon, herbal teas can be a delicious and healthy addition to your fasting routine. Alright, moving on to number 3, apple cider vinegar. Can you have apple cider vinegar when you're fasting? Absolutely. Apple cider vinegar is totally okay. It has no nutrients, it has no stimulatory effect, and no energy value. What does that mean? It means it doesn't affect your body, it's neutral. Now, we're not talking about apple juice here, we're talking about apple cider vinegar. That means it's fermented and it has that acidic quality. A lot of people like to put a tablespoon in some water, maybe add a little lemon, and it can help with digestion. Apple cider vinegar can actually help to balance your pH because it's alkalizing once it's metabolized. So, if you enjoy apple cider vinegar, don't hesitate to add it to your fasting routine. It's not going to spike your insulin, it's not going to mess with your autophagy, it's a great option. Now let's talk about green tea. Green tea is often touted for its health benefits, and it's true, green tea has some wonderful antioxidants. But when it comes to fasting, we need to be mindful of the caffeine content. Green tea has the least amount of caffeine compared to black tea or coffee, but it still has about 25 milligrams per 8 ounces. Now, that's not a lot if you're having 1 or 2 cups, but some people like to sip on green tea throughout the day, and those cups can add up. If you're having 10, 15, even 20 cups throughout the day, that's still a significant amount of caffeine. Remember, caffeine is a stimulant. It can stimulate your adrenal glands to produce adrenaline and cortisol. For most people, a few cups of green tea won't cause any issues. But if you're particularly sensitive to caffeine, or if you have adrenal fatigue, or if you find that you have stubborn weight loss, you might want to moderate your green tea intake. Alright, let's move on to black tea. Now, black tea is similar to green tea in that it comes from the same plant, Camellia sinensis. The difference lies in the processing. Black tea is more oxidized, giving it that darker color and stronger flavor. It also means black tea has more caffeine. On average, black tea has about twice the amount of caffeine as green tea, although there is a range depending on the type of tea and how it's brewed. So if you're someone who enjoys a cup of black tea, just be mindful of the caffeine content. If you're sensitive to caffeine, you might want to stick to just 1 or 2 cups a day. And remember, if you're experiencing any negative effects like jitters, anxiety, or sleeplessness, it's a good idea to cut back on your caffeine intake, whether it's from black tea, green tea, or coffee. Alright, moving on to the beloved beverage of many, coffee. Just like black tea, we're getting a caffeine jump with coffee. And remember, caffeine levels vary greatly, depending on the type of coffee and how it's brewed. Now, if you're not sensitive to caffeine, 1 to 2 cups might not throw you off. But, and this is a big but, resist the urge to sip coffee throughout your entire fasting window. Remember, caffeine is a stimulant. It can poke and prod your adrenal glands, causing them to pump out adrenaline and cortisol. This can mess with your blood sugar and insulin levels, especially if you're already dealing with adrenal issues or stubborn weight. So, pay attention to your body's signals. If you're feeling extra sensitive or hitting a weight loss plateau, cutting back on coffee might be a good move. Bulletproof Coffee. A staple in the fasting world. But is it truly okay for your fast? We give it a cautious green check mark, but with a little question mark on the side. Let me explain. You see, Bulletproof Coffee, when made right with no sugar or protein, has minimal impact on insulin and is generally safe for autophagy, especially in moderation. However, don't be fooled. Bulletproof Coffee can still provide a significant energy boost. Those 2 tablespoons of fat you blend in, that's about 300 calories. Now imagine adding 3 to 4 tablespoons, and you're looking at a whopping 500 to 600 calories. While 1 Bulletproof Coffee might be fine, downing 2 or 3 throughout your fasting window can easily replace an entire meal's worth of calories. And if your body's constantly fueled, it won't tap into those fat stores you're working so hard to burn. Now let's talk about cream. Can you add a splash to your coffee while fasting? The answer is yes, but with a caveat. You see, cream gets the green light because over 90% of its calories come from fat. This means it has a very minimal effect on your insulin levels. However, and this is important, moderation is key. Stick to a couple of tablespoons at most. Why? Because even though cream is mostly fat, going overboard can still add up in calories and potentially slow down your progress. Remember, we want to keep your body in that fat-burning zone, so enjoy your creamy coffee but be mindful of the amount you're using. A little goes a long way. Alright, we talked about cream, which is great for intermittent fasting, but now let's talk about its deceptive cousin, skim milk. You see, while cream is mostly fat, skim milk is loaded with sugar and protein. And what do both of those do? You got it, they spike your insulin levels. And here's the thing about skim milk, because it's so low in fat, you need to use a ton of it to even notice it in your coffee. So you end up consuming way more sugar and protein than you realize, completely sabotaging your fasting efforts. Remember, we're trying to keep those insulin levels low and stable. Skim milk might sound healthy because it's low in fat, but it's a hidden source of sugar that will kick you out of fat-burning mode, so ditch the skim milk and stick with the real deal cream. Now, let's dive into the ever-expanding world of milk alternatives. You've got your almond milk, cashew milk, oat milk, rice milk, the list goes on, and some of them can be okay for intermittent fasting, but there's a catch. The key here is to avoid added sugar like the plague. Look for unsweetened varieties and always read the label. Personally, I find unsweetened almond milk and cashew milk to be the best options. They're naturally low in carbs and calories, with most of their calories coming from healthy fats. A whole cup of these unsweetened nut milks will only set you back about 20 to 30 calories. So, if you're adding a splash to your coffee or tea, it's not going to make a huge difference. But here's the thing. Even with these healthier options, don't go overboard. I recommend sticking to less than 2 cups a day, and definitely don't chug it all at once. Remember, we want to avoid those big insulin spikes. Spread it out throughout the day and you'll be good to go. Bone broth. The cornerstone of any good fasting protocol, right? It's packed with nutrients, supports gut health, and can be incredibly satiating. But when it comes to autophagy, things get a little tricky. You see, bone broth is relatively high in protein with about 10 grams per cup. And while protein is essential for a healthy body, it can actually hinder autophagy, the cellular cleanup process we want to activate during a fast. Now, if your primary goal is to reduce insulin resistance, then bone broth is still your friend. It won't spike your insulin significantly, but if you're aiming for maximum autophagy, you'll want to be mindful of your bone broth intake. The The sweet spot for protein during autophagy seems to be below 20 grams, so you can still enjoy your bone broth, but I'd recommend limiting it to 1 cup a day, especially if you're serious about reaping those autophagy benefits. Alright, let's talk about alcohol. You might be thinking, can I still enjoy a drink or two while I'm fasting? And my answer is a resounding no. Now I know what you're thinking, but Dr. Berg, doesn't alcohol have a lot of sugar? I thought that was the problem. And yes, while excess sugar is a big problem, alcohol is a problem all on its own. You see, even if alcohol doesn't spike your insulin levels as dramatically as a sugary drink, it still puts a major strain on your liver. Remember, your liver is your body's powerhouse for detoxification. It's working overtime during a fast to help clean up and repair your cells. Adding alcohol to the mix is like throwing a wrench in the gears. It forces your liver to divert its precious energy away from crucial tasks to metabolize the alcohol. This can slow down your progress, increase inflammation, and even lead to fatty liver disease. And remember, we're trying to reverse fatty liver, not make it worse. So, whether you're fasting for weight loss, insulin control, or to boost autophagy, put the alcohol on hold. Your liver will thank you for it. Now let's talk about green juice. On the surface, it sounds healthy, right? You're getting a concentrated dose of nutrients from fruits and vegetables. But when it comes to fasting, we need to dig a little deeper. The truth is, green juice can be both beneficial and detrimental to your fasting goals, depending on how and when you incorporate it. First, it's important to understand that green juice, even without added sugar, still contains natural sugars that will trigger an insulin response. This means it will break your fast if consumed during your fasting window. However, if you strategically consume a small amount of green juice close to a meal, especially if you're following a ketogenic diet, it's less likely to disrupt your progress. Here's the key. Keep your green juice intake small, ideally no more than 5 grams of sugar, and consume it right before a meal. This way, you're minimizing additional insulin spikes throughout the day. Remember, timing is everything, and when it comes to autophagy, which is very sensitive to both sugar and protein, it's best to avoid green juice altogether. The concentrated sugar content can hinder your body's natural cleaning and recycling processes. We love coconut, right? Coconut oil, coconut cream, coconut milk, all great additions to a healthy lifestyle. But what about coconut water? It seems like a health food, and it's packed with electrolytes. So it must be okay for fasting, right? Well, not quite. You see, unlike other coconut products, coconut water is relatively high in sugar and low in fat and protein. While it's true that coconut water contains electrolytes like potassium and magnesium, which can be beneficial, the sugar content outweighs these benefits when it comes to fasting. We're talking about 2.6% sugar, and most people drink at least a pint or more in one sitting. That's a significant amount of sugar that can spike your insulin levels and disrupt your fast. Now, if you absolutely love coconut water and feel like you benefit from the electrolytes, a small amount, think half a cup or less, close to a meal, might be acceptable. But for the most part, it's best to steer clear of coconut water while fasting. Remember, we want to keep our insulin levels low and stable during our fasting window, and coconut water can sabotage our efforts. Stick to water, herbal tea, or other low-sugar beverages to stay hydrated and support your fasting goals. Okay, we've talked about fresh squeezed juice, and how there might be some benefits to homemade juice from fruits or vegetables if you're strategic about it. But when it comes to store-bought juice, I don't see any reason to ever go that route. You see, in order to be sold in a store, juice has to be pasteurized, and that pasteurization process destroys most of the beneficial nutrients. All those enzymes, the live factors, the phytofactors, polyphenols, and whatever else might be good in that juice, they're heat zapped away by pasteurization. So when you drink store-bought juice, all you're really getting is sugar water. Yes, it might be slightly better than a Coca-Cola, but not by much. Let's look at the numbers. Orange juice comes in at about 8% sugar, and apple juice is even higher at about 10% sugar. That means if you're having a cup of store-bought juice, you're already getting about 25 grams of sugar. That's a big no-no for any of the health protocols we've discussed, whether your goal is weight loss, reducing insulin resistance, or boosting autophagy. Stay away from store-bought juice. Alright, let's not waste time here. We're going to dismiss regular soda, the kind loaded with sugar and high fructose corn syrup, very quickly. It's a no-brainer. For the most part, sugary drinks are a big reason why many people struggle with their weight and health in the first place. They're loaded with empty calories, spike your blood sugar, and contribute to insulin resistance. We're trying to get healthy here, to optimize our bodies and achieve our goals. So put down that regular soda, and let's move on to something that can actually support your well-being. Remember, knowledge is power. Once you understand how these sugary drinks affect your body, it becomes much easier to make healthier choices. Let's keep going. We've got more to cover. Now, let's talk about diet soda. Most people think, well, that should be totally fine because it has no calories, no sugar. And if I choose the caffeine-free version, it doesn't even have stimulants. It's basically like herbal tea, right? Not so fast. Here's the thing. That sweet taste, even without the sugar, can trigger something called the cephalic phase response. What does that mean? It means that anytime you put something in your mouth and taste it, your body, in all its intelligence, starts preparing your digestion for the food it thinks is about to come. So, if you taste something sweet, your body thinks it's about to receive a big load of sugar and may, in some cases, start producing and releasing insulin to deal with it. Now, there have been studies on this, and they haven't been totally conclusive. Some studies say certain artificial sweeteners will trigger an insulin response, while others like stevia won't. I wouldn't put too much faith in any one study. The fact is, if you taste something sweet, there's a possibility your body starts anticipating and preparing a digestive response, including releasing some insulin. Now you may be thinking, Dr. Berg, you've given the green light to coconut oil in coffee. You said coconut cream is okay too. So what's the problem with having a spoonful of coconut oil on its own? And that's a great question. Here's the thing. Even though coconut oil has very minimal effects on your insulin levels, and we know that it's fantastic for your health in so many ways, remember that it still has calories. A tablespoon of coconut oil has about 130 calories. Now, if you're doing intermittent fasting to lose weight, you want to make sure you're not overdoing the calories, even if they're coming from healthy fats. Having a little bit of coconut oil in your coffee is different than consuming spoonfuls throughout the day. So, while having a little bit of coconut oil here and there likely won't hurt, I generally don't recommend consuming straight coconut oil during your fasting window. You want to give your body a true break from digesting, and that includes fats. Alright, we talked about coconut milk, let's talk about coconut cream. What's the difference? Well, coconut cream is basically just a thicker, richer version of coconut milk. It's made from the same stuff, the white flesh of mature coconuts, but it has a much higher fat content. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing when you're fasting? Well, remember, fat doesn't spike your insulin levels the way sugar does, and since we're trying to keep insulin low during our fasting window, coconut cream can be your friend. But, and this is a big but, you have to be careful with the quantity. A little bit of coconut cream in your coffee can add a delicious richness and creaminess without kicking you out of fasting mode. But if you're downing cups of the stuff, you're basically having a high-calorie meal, and that defeats the purpose. So, enjoy coconut cream in moderation. Think a tablespoon or two in your coffee, not a whole can. Remember, we want to support our bodies during the fasting process, not overload them. Now, let's talk about coconut milk. It's a popular choice for those following a ketogenic or low-carb lifestyle, and for good reason. It's relatively low in carbs, and can add a creamy texture to smoothies and sauces. But how does it stack up when it comes to fasting? Well, just like with coconut cream, the key here is moderation. A splash of coconut milk in your coffee or tea isn't going to sabotage your fast. But remember, coconut milk does contain some carbohydrates, so you don't want to go overboard. Another thing to watch out for is added sugars. Many commercial brands of coconut milk sneak in added sugar, which can definitely spike your insulin levels and disrupt your fast. Always check the label and opt for unsweetened varieties whenever possible. So, the bottom line on coconut milk? It can be a part of a healthy fasting protocol, but enjoy it mindfully, and choose your brands wisely. Stick to small amounts, choose unsweetened options, and you'll be good to go. So, there you have it, a rundown of the best and worst drinks for your fast. Remember, the key is to choose beverages that support your goals, whether it's weight loss, improved insulin sensitivity, or cellular detoxification. If you found this helpful, make sure you also check out that video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.